it added probably a level of micromanagement. It's one of the reasons why we actually removed tech trading from the game, because you'd have a lot of players that are constantly just seeing what is going to be most valuable for you in terms of trades. So I don't know if that's a good answer for that or not, but that's where that sits. We actually removed tech
Maybe
trading.
my civ would be happy if I could trade units with other civs. But knowing me the way I play, I would just make other civilizations unhappy.
I don't know if
That'd
that's
be my
a
luck.
good answer for
Uh,
that or not.
so we're getting some more questions here in the chat. Definitely get them in. I know, again, people are mentioning the lag, but your questions are getting answered. We must be patient. We're doing this on a turn basis. Everyone has to complete their turn before Dennis can answer the question, so just keep sitting tight. Josh would like to know, can you tell us more about the scenarios, Dennis? You mentioned U.S. Civil War and a scramble for Africa. Will there be others? Asked Josh. Josh would like to know, can you tell us more about the scenarios, Dennis? You mentioned U.S. Civil War and a scramble for Africa. Will there be others?
Those are the only two scenarios that we're actually including in this. We have devoted a large amount of the cycles of our gameplay team to the new gameplay systems. We've got a lot more gameplay systems in than we have on Gods and Kings. And while you always want to include more scenarios, we thought that we'd get a lot more people interested in the game and a lot more people playing by concentrating on the core systems. So with the two scenarios, we have American Civil War and we have Scramble for Africa. American Civil War is a nice Eastern theater strategic game. It's got some custom yields in it. It's got its own tech tree, and it's just a nice, straightforward strategic playthrough of the Civil War. A lot of fun, a lot of Civil War units. Some of our smarter modders actually found some of these units. They had snuck into Gods and Kings and some of the pack files. So they knew something like this was coming. But obviously, Ed's designed a lot of Civil War board games, so it was only a matter of time till he got one of these scenarios in the game. Scramble for Africa is something that's actually really unique, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We actually have a map script in the game that has a hard outline to the continent, so the continent's always the same, but it generates the inside randomly every time. So if you're playing one of the European powers or North Africa, Africa is generally covered by fog of war, except for the outside where the ships are going, just the coastlines. So you always have this really cool new experience. But that one's working on a victory point system, and each of the three blocks, I believe it's Northern Africa, Sub-Saharan, and European, all have different victory point conditions. But that one's a 100 turn scenario, and I think that's going to be pretty cool.
We're getting a few more questions from the chat. Just so everyone in the chat knows, I'm going back and forth between Facebook questions and chat questions. So for those of you saying, oh no, we're not asking Facebook questions, totally have Facebook questions right here. You are covered. So from the chat, is there going to be a secondary ability for any of the great musicians or any of the other great artists and that sort of thing?
Oh, definitely. All of the great people in the game have a secondary ability. The great artists still have their create golden age. The great musician has a concert tour ability, and what they're able to do is go tromping into another civilization and perform a concert tour, and that generates a big drop of tourism. So if you're towards the end of the game or you're just impatient, you line a few great musicians up and kind of push yourself over the top in terms of your tourism. The great writer has something called create political treaties, which is basically a internal culture bomb. It just gives you a large bulk of culture when you pop that off. So two different approaches depending what kind of game you're playing for secondary abilities.
I have a feeling concerts would make my civ happy. I think I'm going to use Brave New World to make sure people stay happy in my civilization. One of the questions that keeps coming up both on Facebook and in the chat is if tourism has any benefits other than the culture benefits, which I'm sure Dennis would like to speak to. I heard you start talking about it in the demo, but if you had more on that, people want to know.
Sure. I had touched on it earlier. Tourism, by itself as a yield, comes into play in a big way for ideologies and that ideological influence, that pressure that you're putting on other civs at the end of the game. So that's really your offense there too. So even if you're not necessarily playing a tourism game, it's always handy if you really want your ideology to be the most influential. So, like I said before, if you're causing other civilizations to be super unhappy as a result, they can invade you. What I forgot to mention earlier is that they can also switch ideologies. They can decide to go into anarchy and switch over to your ideology, which is where their people want. They're in awe of you because of your tourism. So, those are the two systems that tourism is primarily serving.
So many great questions coming in from the chat. We're going to take a small break to remind everybody that very soon we're going to be showing a teaser image for the new Civ leader. And we showed one teaser image on our Facebook not too long ago, and we're going to be showing another one shortly when we round out this Q&A. But I do want to let everybody know who won the poster. And the person that won the poster was Mr. Rainbow Man. We do have one more poster to give away, so we'll be doing that shortly. Again in the chat, yes, there is a bit of a lag. Those of you that have played Civ know how turn taking works, so I take my turn. All of the other civs and city-states take their turn, and then Dennis gets to answer. This is just how we're running this Q&A. It's realism, people. Adam would like to know from Facebook, will there be any changes to civs already in the game? For example, it would make sense that Arabia's unique ability, literally called trade caravans, take advantage of some of the new trade mechanics. So that's a good question. I mean, is anything going to change with the civs that we already know from Civ 5 and Gods and Kings to kind of take advantage of some of the new systems in Brave New World? Literally called trade caravans, take advantage of some of the new trade mechanics. That's a good question. I mean, is anything going to change with the civs that we already know from Civ 5 and Gods and Kings to kind of take advantage of the new systems in Brave New World?
Yeah, we are. I mean, some of the original civs, an example of that is Napoleon, France, need their traits and their items updated for the new game. And Napoleon's is, for example, is City of Light, and his theming bonuses are actually doubled in their capital. So we try to go back and revisit all the existing civs whenever we add these big new mechanics to the game to make sure that they fit in. Items updated for the new game.
And kind of on that same note of things that are added to kind of complement the new systems, are we going to be seeing any new tech from Brave New World?
We go back and revisit all the existing civs whenever we add these big new mechanics to the game to make sure that they fit in.
Kind of on that same note of things that are added to complement the new systems, are we going to be seeing any new tech from Brave New World?
Not as much as we introduced in Gods and Kings. Again, the focus of Brave New World is really the systems, and that's why we did so much system work. We do have a new tech internet that primarily serves the new culture game, among a few other things, but definitely heavier on the system side than on the individual edition side.
Can you tell us a bit more? People are really curious about the great writers and the great musicians. I know at PAX I was joking around about how if Lady Gaga was there, she would certainly start a war. I mean, what were some of the things that went into you guys deciding who would be featured as a great artist or a great writer? I'm really curious about the great writers and the great musicians. I know at PAX I was joking around about how if Lady Gaga was there, she would certainly start a war. I mean, what were some of the things that went into
Well, a lot of different things come into that decision making. The first place we started was obviously letting the different disciplines on the team put in their favorites. So the art director did the first 30 or 40 great artists, and the music department obviously picked what they thought would be the best of the great works of music. And the same thing with the writer, put together this big list of what they consider to be some of the best writing from all of history. And there's some general rules that float on top. We can never do something like Lady Gaga or the Beatles, which would be awesome, but there's some real practical, real-world effects of licensing and things like that that you have to take into account. So a lot of the works that we have in the game are classic from history, usually 100 years or older when we do an effect. One of the interesting side effects with that is when the art lead put together the great musician, and all these great people, they change into modern versions of the models, but they almost look like a punk rock band in the modern age. And so one of the strange side effects is that when you use him to create a great work, the one guitarist smashes his guitar on the ground, and all of a sudden you might hear "In the Hall of the Mountain King" coming up as something that they composed. So, but yeah, that was kind of the approach that we took when we put it out there. We did after that initial pass of putting together those great work lists, we did have to really go far and wide to find really unique works from China and Japan and India and all those kind of places to really make sure we have a diverse collection on all of these.
Maybe someday we can get Lady Gaga. I bet you she's a closet Civ fan. I bet if we just reached out to her, she would definitely say yes. That's not true. I don't really know. But she should play because it'd be excellent. More questions from the chat. Will you be bringing back the effects of global warming? So is weather going to play a part in Brave New World?
Not in Brave New World. You never know what the future will hold, but one of those things that we wanted to avoid with Civ 5 at least, whether everybody agrees or not, is we didn't necessarily want to introduce completely random world elements like that kind of takes a player out of the strategy that they're really going for. Interactions with another Civ is one thing, but we didn't want to have too many kind of natural disaster type things coming into play. Now, if we decide that there's a better way to do that in the future, a better way to do it in a future title, that's definitely something that we'll always revisit. I know it's been done well in some past versions, but it just didn't quite fit with what we were doing with 5.
A lot of people are asking for some of the other, nuanced differences between Brave New World and either Gods and Kings or the Civ 5. Just if there will be changes in combat or any diplomacy. Is there anything like that you can speak to, Dennis?
Well, Gods and Kings had the biggest change in terms of overall sweep of balance and changing up the tech tree, changing up the combat systems. And this was more of a fine-tuned approach for the existing gameplay. So aside from archaeology, ideologies, the whole culture system, the diplomatic victory, World Congress, all of that's a really big list. We really wanted to start focusing on some of the fine-tune too. In other words, making diplomacy a little less schizophrenic, even better off than we had it in Gods and Kings. So if you take over one civ or one city, you're not suddenly a warmonger. Or maybe that you've got a stellar ally in another civilization. They don't just decide to stab you in the back because they see an opportunity. That would be like that'd be like the United Kingdom all of a sudden coming over and saying, Brock, we see that your military is a little weak on the East Coast. We're going to attack because you're lifelong allies. You want that kind of stability in your relationships, and I think it really helps gameplay for stuff like that. So that's a lot of the places we're really concentrating on is smoothing those things out, fixing some issues that we have with the AI, all kinds of stuff like that.
That sounds fantastic. I know a lot of people were asking about the AI. And it sounds like between what you've done with the tweaks to AI and the things you're doing with multiplayer, it's really clear that Firaxis has been listening to the fans and the fan base. And I know that a lot of the civs that are in Brave New World came from you noticing what your civ fanatics wanted. Can you just kind of, I don't know, I know we can't talk about everything that's in Brave New World, but if we could talk a little bit about how you've taken that feedback and really, really used it with this expansion. I know that I'm really impressed with how much I've seen from the forums and from Facebook and from Civ fanatics have made it in. So how did you kind of start going through and deciding what was going to go into Brave New World?
Our fans come into it a lot. In fact, on Civ Fanatics on any given day or the 2K forums, they're going to see my handle up in the users that are online. because that feedback is what's so important to us. And 2K has actually been really good about that because it's that kind of feedback that allows us to continue to patch and to release balance patches. And even the end of this year, we have a fall balance patch planned because we know as soon as the fans get hold of the game, they're going to find the best way to play it, and then they're going to find the optimal path through the game. And of course, we're going to have to destroy that and make it difficult again. But what comes into play with that even more, aside from the fan site feedback, is our Frankenstein text group, and we've even got some of those guys lurking in the chat channel. I see they're not going to raise their hand or anything because it's super secret. But we've got members of the community playing the game constantly the entire way through development, which gives the gameplay team amazing amounts of feedback. And without that kind of feedback, I don't think we could have the game be as good as it is now.
Yeah, I just love how much stuff is in. I know we can't talk about all of it because we're terrible people, but we are going to be releasing a bunch of new information tomorrow. And again, we are going to have a sneak peek at one of those leaders very shortly. In the meantime, though, I did want to know about some of your favorite things, Dennis, because I mean, it's not often that we get to talk to somebody that's really in there and really involved. What is your favorite feature that you can talk about that is in Brave New World?
That's got to be the culture changes, the culture tourism changes. I'm a builder at heart, and I know a lot of other people love the domination, they love the science victory, but I just love to build. And that was the one place we actually thought was still lacking. The first half of the game as a culture player was really awesome, and then the second half was really slow. You're basically clicking next turn, just trying to get to broadcast towers. And you were staying like 3 to 5 cities, hoping nobody else notices you, hoping nobody goes to war with you because it just ruins everything and you're behind in science. So adding in this whole new way to play culture in the second half of the game is turning out to be amazing because you can still play that small style if you want, or you can decide to play wide. You can play like Rome. They were a shining star of culture in antiquity, but they also conquered everybody around them at the same time while everybody was in all of them. So you can actually do that in this game. So if you're playing a really strong tourism culture game against another strong tourism culture civ, you might decide instead to invade, take some of his cities, steal some of his great works so that you continue to be more awesome. But it's just the flexibility it gives to the culture player in the second half of the game, whereas before, the culture player kind of ramped down as they were just trying to fill 5 tech trees. So I definitely think that's the thing I'm looking forward to most when this releases, just to see the feedback that we get from something like that.
Mm-hmm. What I really want to know about, and this is something that I've talked about on my Twitter feed, is I love finding the natural resources on the board and trying to, like, you know, set up my city so I have as much as possible. Are there any new resources in Brave New World that we can talk about?
There are, but we can't talk about it yet because it's directly related to one of the other new civs that we're also not talking about yet. So.
Well, you heard it here first. There's new resources. It's
Oh,
happening.
sorry, did that not come through?
No,
There are, but only as it relates to another specific civilization in the game that we're also not talking about.
not a problem. We can talk about things that we're not talking about. So there will be resources of some kind. Oh, we have some other fun questions. People want to know what I'm drinking. It's coffee. Coffee with Ghirardelli chocolate inside of it. And they want to know what that box is behind you, Dennis. There's a box that says caution. I personally hope it's the resources from Brave New World. Ooh, nice.
That is probably the most awesome resource that I actually have in my office. And that's one of the new NVIDIA cards that they sent us to test out. And it's a beast. It's got 2 8-pin power connectors. I believe it's the 590, 690. I'll have to take a look. 790. It's one of the 90s, but it's pretty cool. They sent it. It's like this Indiana Jones style wooden box, and they sent through this crowbar to crow the top off of it, or the top of it. It was very dramatic.
It looks dramatic. It looks excellent. So I think we have time for one more question before we then ask our trivia question and show our little tease. And let's see here, which one? So many questions. You know what? I'm going to ask two. You guys in the chat, come up with your best questions and put it on. And while Dennis is asking this one, put your best foot forward. Let's figure out what we can. Dennis, I want to know what your favorite Civ game to play is. When you go home and you're just ready to hang out, which game do you spend your turns on?
Which Civ game?
Yeah, like which civilization do you play? That's one thing that keeps coming up in the chat. What's your favorite thing? So do you go with Civ 5? Do you go with Civ 5 Gods and Kings? Are you somebody that's sitting there on iOS playing Civ Rev? What is it that you like to play?
I'm playing Civ 5 with Brave New World. I'm playing a lot of Civ 5. We're at the point in the project where pretty much every waking moment is just playing Civ 5 and really exploring it and checking it out. In between the cracks, I am playing some BioShock, of course, but that doesn't give me a lot of time. That's mainly when the kids are around.
Do you have a favorite scenario? Maybe not one from Brave New World that we can't talk about, but just a scenario that you've really enjoyed playing?
I am playing some BioShock, of course, but that doesn't give me a lot of time. That's mainly when the kids are around.
Do you have a favorite scenario? Maybe not one from Brave New World that we can't talk about, but just a scenario that you've really enjoyed playing?
Yeah, I'm still a fan of Empires of the Smoky Skies from Gods and Kings. If I had to go with a second, the American Civil War, just because I'm also a huge Civil War buff, and conspired to convince Ed to put that in the game. Yeah, I'm still a fan of Empires.
All right, we are checking out for the last questions again. Yes, there is a delay. Those are other civs taking their turn. I get to go first, then all the other civs, then the city-states, then Dennis. That's how we're running this. So let's see. Mar, help me pick out the best question. The last question. What will it be? Okay, so the question is, hang on, stop chatting, people. The tourism of some of the countries are based on famous natural wonders. Do you have any plans to add more natural wonders to the game and make them part of a tourism system? So natural wonders as part of a tourism system. Dennis, go. When it's your turn.
We've definitely added more natural wonders to the game. Whether they're tied directly into the tourism system, I can say that to a degree they are, but I don't want to go into too many details because I'll let players start picking that out from the screenshots that are coming out over the next few weeks. We've definitely added more natural wonders.
Seems like a fair answer. So here's what we are going to do, guys. In 1 minute, this is your 1 minute warning. We are going to give away another poster. When we give away the poster, we'll be asking a trivia question, and then Mar will be finding the winner from the chat. Mar, say hey. There's Mar, Dr. Kane in the chat. In the meantime, Dennis, if you want to show off the poster again and maybe hint at that thing that people weren't picking up on before. This is me holding my fake poster. We do have one here while Dennis is getting his. Strategy. Once you've conquered Earth, it's time to bring on the galaxy. And that's right, Dennis is now showing you all of this awesome stuff that no one's been commenting.
What is that?
What could it
What's
be?
that? We don't know.
Could it be Brave New World
We don't
related?
know.
Could be anything. Probably Brave New World related. Secrets. Okay, so here is the trivia question, guys and gals. In Civilization 5, Gods and Kings, what 2 texts must you research before you can research sailing? Again, in Civilization, Gods and Kings, what 2 texts must you research before you can research sailing?
78.
And apparently we already have a winner. Mara, say it again.
Ava 78.
Ava 78. You get a poster. Posters! And Mara's going to go ahead and verify that for us. So before we wrap things up, I do want to thank all of you guys for joining us today and for sticking with us, even though there's a little bit of a lag between everything. We are doing these live streams more and more often, so you can subscribe to the channel. It's twitch.tv/2k. And you can find and bother me at my little Twitter handle, which is like right underneath my name, which is GA, the number 1, FRIDAY. There we go. It's down there. And perhaps most importantly, as some of you in the chat have mentioned, I have been posting on the Civ Facebook page looking for Civ strategy. As Dennis kindly pointed out, I am doing it wrong. My Civ is unhappy. I clearly need your help. And I'm going to keep posting those, so the more you guys tell me how to play Civ better, the more I'm going to appreciate it. So, Dennis, with your blessing, we're going to show a picture that hints at the Civ leader that we're going to be able to talk more about tomorrow. But you get to tell me when to do it, because then we'll have to wait a few more turns. We're building suspense.
I think you should do it now.
Look at that, Dennis.
I'll give you a hint. It's not President Garfield.
Oh, man. Is that the spoiler that'll help you guess it? Go, Mar, go. Who could it be? Could be anybody. Could be me.
It's not President Garfield.
Could be Dennis. Who is that leader? Who is it? Could be anybody. So while you guys take a look at that and keep guessing, we're going to get that image up on the Facebook page later so you can talk about it. We'll head on, we're going to take it down now. Take a screenshot, take a look. There we go. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for coming in and talking with me. I know that I got a lot of my questions answered, and we answered some questions for everyone else. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that we didn't touch on?
I think we touched on quite a bit. I will say that some of the information that people are going to see coming out tomorrow, especially on World Congress, to really dig into it. I mean, that's the one place that we haven't really gotten to talk about a lot yet. And I think the World Congress is going to be one of those things for builders that is really going to change the way people look at the end game, especially if they're not a domination type player. It's going to be awesome.
Well, thanks again so much, Dennis. Like he mentioned, we're going to have a whole bunch of new information coming out tomorrow. You'll see it everywhere on our Facebook page and everywhere else. So thanks so much, guys. Bye, Dennis. Thanks so much. Find us on facebook.com/civ and facebook.com/2kgames. You can subscribe to our channel and keep talking at us. We love it. Bye, guys.
Thank you.